In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 4 stories of medical school mistakes that were life-altering. The goal is to reduce your chance of failure and increase your chance of success. Experience is really the best teacher, but it doesn't have to be your experience. Besides, 6 years is such a short period of time for you to make all the mistakes and learn from them. Now, a very big shout out to those who have contributed to this story by, sharing such a personal and private aspect of their lives with us. Mistakes are embarrassing to make, and sharing them is such a brave thing, and kudos to them. Now, these are real experiences, and I'm going to change the contributor's name just to maintain anonymity. The first story I'm going to be sharing with you today is that of OJ. I met OJ when I was in my first year in the university. At the time, he was in his final year, and it was during the heat of exams, the frenzy, the reading, the nights, all-nighters and all that. Before one of his papers, OJ, like every other student, was reading with his mate. He was making small notes of the important points that he wanted to remember in the exam. When it was time for exam, he and his friends all rushed into the exam hall. Now, to put things in perspective, the punishment for exam malpractice in most schools in Nigeria is expulsion. Now, right then and there in the exam hall, an invigilator came and picked one student in the exam hall and searched him. Lo and behold, that student had papers and expo in his pocket. And immediately, that student was walked out of the exam hall to start, the letters and the panels and all those kind of things. Now, by reflex, OJ just patted his pocket and he discovered that all those notes he was making outside the exam hall were actually in his pocket. Now, after the exams, he was in utter shock. He came to the room and was quiet and sober. We were all wondering what went wrong in the exam hall. 2 days later, he opened up to us and told us what had happened in the exam hall. Now, he wasn't caught, but it was a life-altering experience. And this is closely related to the second story I want to share with you, which is that of Sarah. Sarah was a female medical student in 600 level. I was in my 3rd year when I got to know Sarah. In the part 3 final exam in surgery paper, after the essay part of the exam, everybody was surprised because the exam was not as hard as the exam was not as difficult as they had anticipated. Now, anybody that has done an MB here will know that the question paper is as thick as the answer booklet. So after the exam, when she was trying to discuss some of the questions with her classmates, she discovered that instead of submitting her answer booklet, she had accidentally submitted her question paper, and she left the exam hall with her exam answer booklet. And it was a highly distraughting situation. She had to do a lot of begging, a lot of explanation, Now, Sarah was a diligent medical student. You and I know that cheating in a medical school exam is actually inefficient. And imagine taking your Robbins and Cochran into a pathology exam hall. You don't even have enough time to check and flip the answers before the time runs out. And she was accused of exam malpractice. The point is this: you cannot afford to lose guard at any point. I know the pressure is high, I know tension is high, I know you are stressed and all, but you must make sure that at all times you are conscious and then you are careful. Because what you are going to go through to explain yourself, even for an honest mistake, is too elaborate a process. And let me just say now that on this channel, there's a lot of materials on examinations, OSCEs, clacking stations. We have 1,500 picture tests containing, clinical pictures, instruments, radiographs, and stuff like that. The goal is to make exams in medical school as, stressless as possible. So please do share this link with your fellow classmates and your friends who are also in medical school, so that we can all have, a less stressful time. This is going to lead me to the third story I'm going to tell you today, which is that of, let's call him BJ for the sake of, this video. Now, BJ schooled in northern Nigeria. And to put things in perspective, BJ spent 4 years searching for admission and got admitted at his 5th trial. So he was quite a mature student when he got into the university. He cleared his 1st year, 2nd year was a roller coaster, 3rd year was on fire. The problem started in the 4th year. Now, love is the beautiful thing. The problem was not because BJ fell in love. It was not because he had a side business alongside school. It was not because he was in his 4th year. The problem was not even because the love of his life was, 3 years ahead of him. The problem was because, as my friends used to say, calcaneus over calvarium over love. It takes time to love. Even though you are going to be passionate and all mushy about it, you have to also be aware of the fact that you are still a student and still a medical student. Now, BJ was skipping classes. After exams, he was rushing back to go and meet her, and this was taking his time, distracting his business and all that. I'm not saying love is a distraction, but BJ took it to the nth degree. It was affecting every other aspect of his life. He was not coming to class, he was barely going for clinical activities. Everything was, everything came to a standstill. And in retrospect, he had this to say: here was a lovely friendship that I could have nurtured and sustained for a prolonged period of time. Instead, I pushed it from friendship to love, and at the end of the day, I lost everything. And it affected him so much that it started affecting his performance in school, his relationship with his other friends, and his business and all that. And this, you would agree with me, is not just love anymore. there is something about it. The chances of you falling in love in medical school are high, but don't let it be an accident. Be conscious when you make that decision of falling in love, so that you be aware and so that it will, harmonize and balance with other aspects of your life, so that everything does not just have to go off in flames. The first story I'm going to be sharing with you today will be that of John. Now, John was, the prototype medical student. He graduated secondary school summa cum laude, got into medical school at 17, was brilliant. See, the average of us watching this video, if you're a medic, is you were either the head girl, the head boy, a library prefect, a senior prefect, a general prefect, with an awesome score before you got into medical school. John cleared his first year, got into second year, and that's where the problem started. And the problem was that old problem, that very problem of priority. John spent an awful amount of time arguing about his faith. Futile arguments that were not actually bringing forth any results. In med school, most seniors are kind of, observant. When you see a medical student consistently begin to take a path that is not going to lead well, you actually know. So he was approached by seniors and advised, but he did not take these words to heart. And consistently, you will be hearing him arguing, discussing one topic or the other. It continued and, became pathological, up to the point that on exam eve, John was spending time arguing about topics that were not related to the exam. Now, the point of all these things is not to make you a textbook wired for sound, but so that you be conscious and be aware of the kind of decision you are making and how you are spending your time. Now, John made a very bad decision, and at the end of the day, he flunked out of medical school. The point is for you to always be aware of what you are doing, to keep balance and perspective of all you are doing. Finally, I want to talk about the issue of responsibility. As you grow older in medical school, you will have the opportunities to probably head an organization, lead a group, or something of that nature. And I want to draw your attention to something. If you take a flaming ember and you bring it into a gush of wind, what will happen is it will be fanned into flame. But if you take a candlestick into that same wind, it's going to be blown off. You need to brutally and honestly analyze your strengths and your weaknesses before you take up any responsibility in med school. The reason why is because we are all wired differently. For some, stress brings out the best in us. For others, it just makes everything go haywire. So you need to analyze your strengths and your capacity before you take on any added responsibility. And this applies to, leadership positions, side hustles, and every other thing you want to venture in. You need to analyze yourself before you take forth any responsibility. Guys, this is where we're going to draw the curtain today. I hope you learned one or two things. Don't forget to leave your comments in the comment section below. And if you have any story or any experience you want to share so that the rest of us can learn from, please also notify me in the comment section below. Thank you guys, and see you in the next video.